Welcome to a practice session, TypeScript and NPM. And many times you will use TypeScript alongside NPM, and it's important for you to understand how NPM and TypeScript work together, at least at a basic level. To do this, we will have a practice short session in which we will create an NPM package with TypeScript, and we will export it. And by doing this, we will observe the different steps and tips along the way. Then we will also use the newly created package inside another project. Again, we will observe what is different. And why do we want to do this? First of all, it is very important for any TypeScript developer to understand, at least at a basic level, how NPM and particularly how types work inside NPM. And this is very important also. As a side note, if you are using Yard or PNPM, you might adapt the information from this section to your particular type package system. Let's also look at our workspace by the end of this section. This is our workspace by the end of this section. Our package that we will be writing is a simple dump logger written with TypeScript. We will see the different steps that we need to take in order to create this package, and then we will see how we can use it inside another package. This being said, let's get to work and have a practice session. In this lecture, we will start to implement our very basic package, a logger, and I've listed the steps that we need to take inside this very simple text file. So nothing really new under the sun, just some basic steps to build a project, and in the next lecture we will see how we can export it as a local package. Well, let's get to work and let's follow the steps I've listed inside this simple text file. What we need first is an empty directory. I've called this directory concise logger right here on the left, and we need first of all to make it a node package. npm init -y, just as we did a lot of times before. Clear the terminal, and also let's make this a TypeScript project. Alright, this is a TypeScript project. Let's now install our dependencies. All these steps are not in a very particular order. Let me just copy and paste this. And very important, we will install TypeScript, the node for types and the types for UUID as development dependencies. And we will have UUID as an external dependency to understand better how dependencies and packages work inside NPM. First of all, let's install these development dependencies, the most important one being, of course, TypeScript. Alright, let's also install UUID. Alright, what else do we need right here? I've put add a build script. So currently inside our package.json file we don't have an entry, but we should have an entry that will trigger the TypeScript compiler. So as scripts right here, I will have a build script, and the build script will simply invoke the TypeScript compiler, the local TypeScript compiler, because most likely this package will end up inside a CI/CD pipeline, and the compiler should be executed from the local dependencies, not from global dependencies. And currently we should have an entry to the TSC compiler right here. Alright, what is the next step? We need to configure our tsconfig.json to add our source file, source project, source folder. Right here, our root directory is /src. Our out directory should be dist, just like we did many times before, like this. And also, very important, we should emit d.ts files. So we should set this declaration set to true, because we want this package to be used by other packages, and these declarations will come in very handy. Alright, let's save the tsconfig file. And what else do we need? Of course, we need our actual package implementation. Yes, of course. So here I'll create a new folder, .src. Alright, and here I will create a new file. I will call this index.src. awesomeness.ts, and I will create another folder called lib, and right here inside this lib I will put our dependencies. We will see this in a moment. Of course, I won't lose time to write everything, and I will just paste it. You can also explore it from the resources. Alright, and let's understand in a few seconds what's this very basic implementation of a logger does. Currently, I've created a type called log properties, which is a partial from these other types. Currently, I've complicated things a little to have an object of type log properties to pass some information or some props to our very simple log function. Because I'm cool, I don't use console.log, I use process.stdout. Yes, because this takes less memory, at least in theory. And also in this implementation, if we have log properties and we are getting this with ID or with date or with note, we are simply putting things out inside this. We will have three simple methods: a debug method, an info method, and an error method, which all of them will do basically the same stuff, but we'll add a debug, an info, or an error before the log. In the end, I will export these three functions right here. And currently you see that I have a compilation error right here. And I said with one entry right here with ID. And I thought that, hey, sometimes we want to add an ID to our log, a randomly generated ID to a log. Well, basically, I don't know why you should want to do that, but let's say sometimes we would want to have a generated random string. For this, of course, we need an external package. And there's an important discussion right here, not regarding TypeScript in particular, but regarding package management. And usually when we have to deal with packages, especially small packages, I found out throughout the years that it is a very good practice to put these small packages or their references inside a separate file or class. And right here, if I wanted an ID with an ID right here, I would simply have said v4 from UUID and right here, and everything would be alright. But let's imagine that this project will grow and grow and grow throughout the years, and it will be hard to maintain. And let's say that any package you use, any external package, tomorrow might become obsolete, or the team which handles it will say we are no longer maintaining this package, you should use something else. You can see the request library from NPM, or maybe a critical bug or error or a critical security problem would be present inside the library, as was for the log4j library for Java. And of course, then you will also have to switch to another package or remove it entirely. If all those references to that package will be in one file inside your project, then your life would be very easy. So even if this is a overcomplication for a basic project, I find it a very good practice for a big real world project. So right here I will create this ID generator, or how did I call it? ID generator. So ID generator.ts right here. And right here I've simply used this v4 from UUID. Well, if a problem comes with UUID, I will simply remove this from right here and use another library or use a native node or browser implementation. Alright, and what else I want to show you inside this index.ts? Well, what's the problem? Alright, inside this log properties entry, I've made it a partial, so all these entries right here are optional. And also I've added some documentation to this with date, with ID, and with note. This will be important in the next lecture. Are there any more steps? No, they are not. So our package is ready to be used by other packages. We will do this locally, and we will see how to do this in the next lecture. Alright, so we have our package. Let's first see if we can build it by basically calling the TypeScript compiler. So here I will say npm run build, and this will just call the TypeScript compiler, and now we have a dist folder which contains our JavaScript files and also our types. Alright, what we need to do now is to find a way in which we can build this project. But another very important point, what exactly do I want to export as a package from my project? Because I don't want to export my TypeScript files, so I only want to export my JavaScript files and my documentation that stays inside the d.ts files. Well, we need to instruct Node to do this. I mean not Node, but npm. So here inside the package.json of our package, we should add two new entries. Well, inside our package.json file, we have an main entry, and this main entry currently for us will be our index.js, but inside our dist folder. So right here I will say dist/index.js, and because we are using TypeScript, we should also add a types entry right here, and these types are inside this index.d.ts. And this index.d.ts contains some basic documentation regarding our project, usually the types that are used by the files which are exported. Well, we have made our package ready to be packed. Well, let's call the npm pack command. So here I'll say npm pack. And what this will create something called a tarball, or basically something, an archive containing the package name, its version, and in t.g.z format. Alright, and here we have our package right here. This is the one, and basically when you call npm install, what npm does, it goes to the npm registry, it finds this particular archive right here, it downloads it, and it unpacks it. Well, let's see what this file contains. So here I will open this file, and this contains a package entry, and this package entry also contains, for example, it contains our dist folder, our package.json, but it also contains the src folder, which contains TypeScript files, we don't need them. It contains our steps.txt file, we don't need them. And it contains our tsconfig.json file, also not needed in the final package. So what we can do, also, I will delete this, and what we can do is to have a npm ignore file. Just like we have an git ignore file for source control, we can have a .npm ignore file that just ignores what we don't want to end up in our final package build. So we don't want our src folder, we don't want our tsconfig.json, we don't want our steps.txt, and some I saw that are cautious about the node modules and also add the node modules right here. Alright, so because this is a very important point, in the earlier versions of npm it would also pack the node modules, but now it uses the package.json file to download the dependencies. We will see this, how we can use this package in the next lecture. Well, we have this .npm ignore, and let's run the npm pack command again. And to make things more clear, let's pack this one folder up. So here I will cd one folder up, and why do I do this? Because I will want to use this archive right here in the simple app, which will also be another package. Well, here I will call npm pack, but I will give it a path to our concise logger. And this will simply create the archive right here in the same level as our concise logger, but also as our simple app, you know, to have things more clear. Now we have our file, our concise logger.t.g.z. We can see how we can install it from a local file, and we will explore it in the next lecture. Alright, and it's finally time for us to install our great package that we built until now. I've created a very simple package with a package.json and a tsconfig file, so we can use TypeScript. And let's see the inside that package that will use our package. And what we want to call right here, we want to call npm install, but we want to tell it to install this from a file, our package from a file, not from the npm registry. For this I can simply call npm install, and then I can simply pass the path to our package. In our case is our concise logger right here, and I have to give the full name. Alright, and it worked. If we look at now at our package.json, you'll see a nice entry in our dependencies. We have our concise logger package, and it comes from a file, our file right here. And very important, we have some node modules. What node modules do we have? Let's think for a moment, maybe pause the video and think about it. We will only have the concise logger or other modules, and if we have other modules, what modules do we have? Alright, let's see what modules do we have. We have our concise logger, but also we have our UUID, which is a dependency of our concise logger. And if we look at the package.json of our library right here, you'll see that we have these dev dependencies, which of course weren't packed to our package. What was packed inside our package was only its dependency, the UUID library. That's great, and you can see it right here. What we care about is what is happening right here. And here we have this dist entry, which contains all our logic. Well, it's finally time to see if everything works or we screw it up. Let's see. And for this, let me just create a simple file right here. Let me call this index.ts. And right here, let's import our package. So I will import from, and here I can say concise logger. And what do we want from the concise logger? As you can see, we have an entry from our three types of functions. Let me call this debug function, and let's call it. And when I will call this debug function, because this is what we cared about, I can call this debug function. And what do we need right here? You will see that we need a message, which is of type string, and maybe some properties. Let me choose right here, just a message, and let's also give it some properties. And this is where the beauty of TypeScript comes in. If I press Ctrl space right here inside this object that I just passed, I can have a note with that, with date or with ID. If I press Ctrl space again inside VS Code, maybe for other editors there's another shortcut. Alright, you'll see that right here downstairs I also have the documentation which I just generated in the before with NPM and with TypeScript. And if I just move along, you'll see that I will get instant types and also documentation which I've put before inside my package. And I can give it a note, and here I can say just a note. Alright, and also let's give it an ID to see if we are correctly calling the UUID library. Alright, with ID this should be true. Alright, let's save this and let's execute it. Maybe cd to our, first of all, let's call the TypeScript compiler to see if the compiler works. And let's look at our index.js file that was generated. As you can see here, we are simply making a require to our function, and then we are calling the debugger. Very importantly, this will only work with Node. This won't work inside the web browser, because web browser don't know about requires. So if you want to run this in the browser, you of course have to use module bundling. But let's execute this and see if it works. So here I will call node index.js, and as you can see, I'm getting my debug, I'm getting my random string as an ID, and I'm getting my node, so everything works as it should. We saw in this lecture and in this section how we can create a TypeScript package and how we can import it, all of this locally and with types and also with instant documentation.